Hi, welcome to the week. I'm Jeremy Cordo. Peter Clayton's here. The garage is open and the court of public opinion is in session. The most powerful court in the land. The court of public opinion. Why? Because you make it so. Well, we all do, in a way. Before we get into the events of the day and the week, some birthdays, anniversaries. 1894, and some very clever person invented the bottle opener. William Painter was his name. Now that begs the question, doesn't it? I mean, how did people open bottles before the bottle opener? So you had all these millions and millions of bottles with lids on them and no earthly way of opening them until William Painter came along. I don't think it happened that way. The first Spitfire, Australian Spitfire, well, it was an English Spitfire obviously, but in Australia, in action, in Darwin, it shot down an MU KI-46, 1943 on this day. Indeed, we were fighting for our lives back then, as indeed we probably are to a lesser degree today, one way or another. Jay Leno ends his time on The Tonight Show. Very successful, lucrative time it was too, I might tell you. Anyway, 2014 was the year. Stanford Raffles, I was talking about Stanford Raffles the other day. He was the man who founded, was credited with having founded Singapore, and I knew it was around about this time of the year. Well, it was this day, February 6, 1819. Singapore didn't become a British colony until 1824, a few years later. Monopoly, the board game, goes on sale for the first time in 1935. Joseph Priestley, the English chemist, he was also a theologian and an author. He discovered oxygen and carbonated water. He died at the age of 70 on this day in 1804. Ronald Reagan, 40th President of the United States. He died in 2004, and he was born this day in 1911. The Beagle, HMS Beagle, and of course Charles Darwin arrive in Van Diemen's Land in Tasmania on this very day back in 1836, same year that the founding fathers of this state arrived on the Buffalo down at Holdfast Shores, same year. Natalie Cole, the American pop vocalist, she was born in Los Angeles, daughter of Nat King Cole, dies 2015, but born this day in 1950. The first radio-controlled aeroplane was flown in 1948. I got a few hanging from the roof here. They're not radio controlled anymore, I just use them to, well, hang from the roof. I've got this thing, well, we've got this thing about aeroplanes, I don't know, not everybody does. Zsa Zsa Gabor, Hungarian-born American actress, born in Budapest. She died in 2016, but she was born 1917. Wasn't she the housekeeping one? Pete, was she the...
No, I don't know much about her.
She said, I think it was either Eva or Zsa Zsa Gabor. There was two very beautiful women, and she always joked she was very good at housekeeping. She always kept the house.
I don't know. I think my brother had a crush on her, but that's about all I know.
Well, just tell your brother not to marry her. That was the trick. Patrick McNee, 1922. He was born and he died in 2015. The Avengers, Magnum P.I., Sherlock Holmes, born in London, 1922. 1913, Mary Leakey, the British paleontologist, discovers the earliest human footprints. On this day, in 1913, 3.6 million years old, the footprints. Died in 1996. Rip Torn was born. He was in the robe and Larry Sanders Show, a great voiceover artist. Lots of different movies he was in, but I love the name, Rip Torn. I mean, just seriously have a name. Rip Torn. Rip Torn. Anyway, there you go. Oh yeah, Bradman. If you're into cricket, Pete's into cricket. Bradman retires hurt, 57, in the last Test cricket innings in Australia, or his last innings, 1948. Anyway, if you remember the day, I hope it's going to be a really nice one. It's a day of celebration. We're headed for a good week of weather here in South Australia. But it's been an interesting week, the last one. Scorching in Queensland, cold and wet in Melbourne. In fact, snow was falling in the Highlands. Nothing compared to America. Northeast United States, rain, snow, high winds, freezing temperatures, 105 degrees below. That's Fahrenheit. That's an amazing 40 degrees Celsius below freezing. Coldest day ever. Friday, coldest day ever in the United States. A new parliamentary year kicks off in Canberra today. Wacko. And the Court of Public Opinion promises to be keeping an eye on all the shenanigans, just for the sheer fun of it. The biggest, most important issue to be discussed, ultimately decided by, of course, the people, but debated at length, will be the Aboriginal voice to Parliament. And the Court of Public Opinion will certainly be watching that one. South Australia's ambulance response times are the worst in the country. And there is nowhere in the country that is particularly good. More evidence of a collapsing health system in Australia. And when you consider the money that we pour into health, or more correctly, we pour into sickness, a big meeting of the heads of government, the National Cabinet as it's called, on Friday. Don't get me wrong, I think the National Cabinet's a good idea. You get all the heads of government from all around the country to sit around a table and work things out. But do they? Do they? The health thing is a pressing issue, but you've got an ageing population, expensive technology, modern medicine, which we all want to avail ourselves of, very high expectations. Money is finite, hospital space is finite, the number of doctors and nurses, finite, ambulances, well, they're finite. In years gone by, of course, when everything worked reasonably well, we used to triage ourselves. We didn't run off to the doctor with a runny nose, let alone to the emergency room. That there's even a discussion about whether or not pharmacists should be the obvious first port of call is just ridiculous. Ask your family chemist, he knows. Do you remember the ads they used to run? It was a catch-all when they were running an ad for a pharmacy in any respect. Ask your family chemist, he knows. And most of us did ask the family chemist, that is. Now, what was the result of the National Cabinet meeting? Nothing. 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 Don't know what it cost to get them all together, but nothing. We got a media release which said nothing. Really? Will patients get to see a doctor faster or cheaper? No. They've just kicked the can down the road. That's what they've done. I was listening to some experts on cultural diversification. Now, I still don't know what cultural diversification is. You see, I believe in the individual and his or her right to be whatever. Conservative, radical, adventurous, devout, atheist, methylated spiritualist if you want. It's your business. But I'm afraid this cultural diversity is a catch-all phrase which seems to include only the radicals and various certified Fruit Loops. I have to stop listening to the ABC. I get some sort of perverse pleasure out of listening to my taxes being spent on this nonsense. This person was saying, let me quote, "We, the culturally diverse, are not getting our fair share of the philanthropic dollar." Now, I would suggest that philanthropy comes from, for want of a better word, the establishment. The establishment, which of course reserves the right to promote and support the things that they consider to be important, worthwhile, things that they can relate to and understand, things with which they agree. Now, this person was saying, we, the culturally diverse, we deserve to be part of this vast amount of money which is given away every year. They want a slice of the action, in other words. Her solution was that her solution was, if you are a fringe dweller, or an flat earther, or indeed a methylated spiritualist, or anyway, a certified nutter perhaps, you've got to get the attention of these golden-hearted philanthropists. They are keen to give you a piece of their money, she said. They are keen to give you a piece of their fortune. Really? Really? That sort of rubbish the national broadcaster should be broadcasting and therefore supporting? And it wasn't tongue-in-cheek. It wasn't tongue-in-cheek. These golden-hearted people are keen to give you a piece of their fortune. Really? Oh, God. The Americans, I see, have stopped pussyfooting around with this spy balloon. It was about the size of 3 double-decker buses. The president was absolutely delighted at the accuracy of the jet pilot that shot it down. How the hell could you miss? Anyway, it doesn't matter. They shot it down. Anyway, there it is, up there, floating around 60,000 feet up. What was the name of the bloke who was at a similar height in a plane flying over Cuba or Russia or somewhere? Francis Gary Powers, I think his name was. He was flying in a U-2, I think it was U-2, spy plane. Great big black thing. Most planes can't get up there anywhere near 60,000 feet. Really, you're on the edge of space. It was coincidentally manoeuvring around Montana, where the Americans have got quite a few strategic military bases, installations. Now, can you imagine what would happen if the Americans had sent a spy plane or a balloon or whatever to hover over China? Can you imagine? That's not to say that both sides don't have spy satellites in orbit, keeping a very close eye on everything, and those satellites have got amazing cameras. They can read the number plates of cars. Very powerful. No, I don't know. The Americans cozy up to the Philippines, as they did last week, arranging access to bases and things like that. China is not happy and tells the world in no uncertain terms it's not happy. The Americans have at least shot the thing down. That's the point that they make. Maybe they should have just reciprocated and sent their own balloon over China. But no, we got a lot of huffing and puffing, a lot of finger waving. They mumbled something about sovereignty and the rule of law, and cancelled a planned visit by the United States Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. Well, I'm sure the Chinese felt suitably chastised over the entire thing. I wonder why, the European Criminal Court can't try and convict Vladimir Putin for crimes against humanity, albeit, of course, in his absence. He's clearly broken every international law likely to keep the world safe, or at least away from the edge of an atomic war. Friday, commemorating the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany, the siege of Stalingrad it was, Putin openly again threatened the world with nuclear war. What this stupid man can't see, of course, is that the reasons the Russians won that war, the Battle of Stalingrad, is the very same reason that the Russians will lose this one that he started in Ukraine. The Germans lost because they were not fighting for their homeland. The Russians were, just exactly like the people of Ukraine. You can see Russian soldiers don't have their heart in any of this war. The really interesting question is, why does Putin? I really don't know. I really don't know. Oh yes, this is a lovely one. They want to ban Tom Jones' song called Delilah. You heard the story? It provokes domestic violence. Oh, what rubbish. Where would you stop? Bohemian Rhapsody? You'd have to get rid of Tom Dooley. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. You'd have to ban just about every country song. Olivia Newton-John's On the Banks of the Ohio. Chris Christopherson's Silver-Tongued Devil was Johnny Cash singing the song or the story of the Alamo. Rebellion, murder, mayhem. Can you think of any, Pete?
I just can't bring.
But they're all
I know John
always.
Stewart had some. And,
Yeah.
Garth Brooks had one.
Yeah. How do you sanitize? How do you sanitize music or literature? The guy who wrote Amazing Grace, he was a slave trader. So you got to get rid of Amazing Grace. Where do we stop with all this rubbish? How far back do we go? The Bible, particularly the Old Testament, is filled with violence and bloodshed. Now, leave things that appeared in history in one context alone. You can't judge and edit the past through the eyes of the present. I think that is very, very true. And here's a thought worth remembering. You can't undo history. We're all a product of that which has gone before, good and bad. Individually, well, it's our DNA. Try to undo that. Try to edit a bit out of that. I don't understand. I really don't. You can't cancel part of your DNA. When you look at the country, your generation or your population, your nation, we're a product of everything that has happened in history. The good, the bad, the imperial, the tribal, the colonial, the indigenous. Like it, hate it, remember it, embrace it, love it, but for God's sake, celebrate it. Celebrate every single moment of it. And stop with this trying to live with one eye in the rear vision mirror. You're likely to wrap yourself around some significant historical signpost if you do that. Thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. See you tomorrow. Believe in yourself. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. See you tomorrow.